My name's Ben.
I'm Jack.
I'm Chase.
I'm Elise.
I'm Maria.
And I'm Paige.
Alright, so last episode we talked about how Fahrenheit 451 society compares to today's society, and right now we're going to be talking about was he right? Was Ray Bradbury right? And we're also going to be talking about how we could get there eventually. Will we get there? So, Ben, what do you think? First thoughts.
So I think Ray Bradbury was right in some sort of way. Back in the 1950s, you can only base off what information you had. He was actually, we see a movement going on in our current society about banning books or getting rid of literature. It's a small one right now, but Ray Bradbury did technically predict that that might be where our society heads towards. So I think he was right in that direction.
Do you think he was right?
I mean, he was right, like Ben said, in some ways, depending regarding books, but I feel like he was definitely wrong in how society be controlling our people now.
I think here he was in America. He was like, which is where he was. I would say he was like very, very wrong as far as what he meant. And I know he didn't think we were actually. I know he was trying to more symbolize like this is where we're moving towards. But I think he was wrong in that sense. But I think worldwide he might have been more right.
He talks about in Fahrenheit 51 censored media, and you see now even the government's allowed to look through your camera and see what you're doing. It's a lot of the government has control over your phone and the technology in it. So it's similar, but not to the certain extent of censoring it. So it's similar, but not completely to where it is.
So I think that he had the right idea on this, kind of the broad concepts, kind of hinting to what it would be like socially, not necessarily the government.
Yeah.
Because, we do, I feel like as a society, have a problem with, looking down at our phones. And, when, meeting someone, if it's awkward, everyone has a tendency to just go on their phone if they just don't want to talk.
Yeah.
I know I do it, and I know a lot of other people do it. But, in their society, they just stop talking to each other. They don't necessarily have phones to look down to, but they just don't start conversations, which is different. When Clarice started a conversation, that was something.
When you feel uncomfortable, you want to shut down, and I think they do that in the Fahrenheit 451 society.
I think like you're saying, I think in our society we have a big problem with not being able to sit in silence. I mean, I know you said conversation, but just think yourselves. Think about how often you can just sit in silence and do something. I mean, I know myself, even when I'm doing my homework, I need to have music playing, I need to have something playing. Or even when I'm doing something that occupies my time, like playing a game, I need to also have a TV going. I need something to be filling that dead noise.
Yeah.
I feel like now people are very everyone expects everything very instantaneously. Everything has to happen at this time. When your Wi-Fi doesn't load, everyone gets so upset, and it's 5 minutes that you have to wait extra.
Yeah.
I think another thing with the phones is the talking. You'll go out to a restaurant and it's everyone's on their phones.
Yeah.
So why go out? Because nobody will talk to. I mean, you'll talk, but nobody's talking anything of substance. Just like what they said in the book, and nobody can retain a conversation for more than 5 minutes without having to check their phones or wanting to be distracted.
Again, I don't think it's to the extreme that he predicted it, but there are some similarities, definitely.
I think government-wise he was definitely wrong, but I think socially he was pretty close, especially with, I know we're talking the way people act, but when you want to talk the way people censor things, people do not insert, even though this is not the majority of people, there's a minority of people who will control what people like, and this is mainly on social media. But they're kind of the biggest, even though they're smallest voices, they're it's a small group, they have the biggest voices.
Yeah.
And they'll control if we don't like this, no one's allowed to like it. And it's kind of something that he kind of was really right about that, about not offending people. Even though it's a small group, they have the biggest voice.
I feel like his prediction of I feel like the fire department was kind of a prediction because they have the control and the power to erase stuff, and I feel like that's kind of our government now. They have a huge say and can just change stuff drastically.
The fire department in the book, didn't like books, so they just chose to delete it. And in modern society, if the government hears something they might not like or might not agree with, or could cause an uproar against them, they can just delete it from the
if you guys are ready to shift topics, does anyone have anything else?
Mhm.
I think we should talk about, do we think it's possible in the future for us to ever get there? And if you do, how are we gonna get there? What events are gonna happen? Is it gonna be slow, fast?
I think a big thing right now is left and right in the government, your political views, and how upset people get with the other side. It's hard
Yeah.
to comprehend other people's ideas, and it's very easy to get offended with other people's ideas and ideologies.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing that people are starting to see a huge divide, and people aren't
Yeah.
coming together as much for something so like insignificant as a question on a ballot. Like it's just I don't know.
Yeah, as far as like humans go, it's not that big. Obviously, the government is probably the biggest part, but as far as like humans go, at the end of the day, it's not. It shouldn't change how you talk to someone. And I think the problem, and this is a kind of similar to the book, people don't want to. They don't even want to comprehend the idea, but they don't even want to hear the person's idea. They hate one side. Like a person on the right will hate a person on the left without hearing what they have to say.
Yeah.
And
Also, like, you don't know if there will be some like big event that like will happen, and then finally some leader will be like, "We're done," and they just kind of cut off everyone's like right to talk freely or share information or different opinions. Like, you don't know if something big will happen, and all of a sudden.
Luckily, in our government, there are branches that can prevent that, but there are so many countries that don't have that.
Like, you don't know, like, one day there could just be one big uprising and then just fall.
I mean, yeah, luckily I think we live in a place where it's like, I like really don't think I think the only way I don't think it could ever happen quickly, because I think if it happened quickly, there'd be an uproar of like arms, there would be like war. But I think if it was in a time of, I think the only way it could possibly happen, I don't think it could, would be a very passive growth. It'd be like, okay, within a span of 10 years, we lose this ability to do this, and it's over like a century of time, and eventually we get there. Because you look at countries that are there, and it's taken years to
Because
get to
if you
that point.
slowly take something away, you don't realize that you're losing it.
Exactly.
I'm gonna actually oppose this argument real quick. We've seen recently if if like a figure that has a lot of people behind him goes against what the government wants or provides, we'll see brands like Instagram, Twitter,
Who?
Facebook just instantly delete all their accounts and delete any recognition of them, which is basically them deleting history or the president.
not
which we
quite
What do
see
you mean by the
government
government? Yeah, what do you mean by the government? Because
or not the government, the higher up figures in the world, the owners of these companies.
so you think there is like a power in the world?
I
that
think
we don't know about?
I didn't say that. I think we're currently
Like,
we're
he's saying
seeing
that
the
there's a
start of
relation.
like power.
There's
like,
a
there's
relation.
difference in power.
There's a
It's
hierarchy.
maybe
Yeah.
not as high up as government, but you know,
But I
there.
see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, if we're talking about
Like it
Donald
relates.
Trump is a huge example. He got banned from Twitter and like Instagram stuff like that because he was saying that
All in
things
one
that's
day.
offended people all in one day.
Yeah.
And I think with the government, I know I've seen some, conspiracy theories on the internet about how, we might turn into a monarchy or something like that. So you get rid of voting because this political divide is ruining our country.
Yeah.
So they would want to get a way to get rid of that.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the idea that Jack had about how even if possibly we were changing like the society in Fahrenheit 451, how it'd be like very slow, but I feel like it'd be different because they wouldn't be able to erase the past like they did in the book.
Because of the internet.
Yeah, the internet, they're not gonna be able to, I feel like, get rid of that. Like in the books, nobody really had an idea what the past was besides people who physically like were
We're there.
there.
I
And
think,
then, do you wanna add?
there you go.
Well, I was gonna like shift it a little.
Oh, well, I think that could never happen because as bad as the division in our country is of politics, I think that would stop it because I'm guessing the only way that would ever happen is if one political party had that opinion. And I think the other party would be way too quick to jump to like,
Yeah.
they would jump, it would be a rebellion. I mean,
Yeah, like
that's
I
how
said
America
earlier,
was founded. I think we would.
Yeah, I feel
like I
there'd-
said earlier, there's so many branches that will prevent that in our country.
yeah,
but
there'd be more,
there
more
are other countries.
opposing people like Montag. How
Mhm.
Montag, whatever. He was like one of a kind going out against the government, you could
Yeah.
say.
But the thing is,
But-
it wasn't one of a kind. There were.
Well, there's
other
very
people
few,
out there.
very few.
Yes.
But like now there's
But very
huge
few
different
people
parties.
can
But
cause enough.
we're like a
political
country of
change.
Montags in a way.
Mhm.
We have so many people who want to change.
Oh, and then I was just gonna say shifting from government to like socially, how that relates.
Yeah, I think socially speaking, we could definitely get to a point like that because I think we are pretty. I mean, there's things like if you want to bring up examples in the real world, there's like good examples that happen. Um, like you want to talk, like anyone who says something that's bad, yeah, that. I mean, if you have a lot of influence in the world and you're saying stuff bad, it's fine if you get banned if you violate like guidelines. But like, I think the reason people assume the government is the one doing it because what happens to a guy like Trump, he is in politics, but at the end of the day, it might not be political because
Yeah.
you see it happen to other people. Like you've seen it. There's like news reporters like Alex Jones it happened to. I mean, he was saying bad things and he got banned. That wasn't a political thing.
Right. It's just everyone coming together to agree he's not a good person or doing the wrong things, and they don't want his voice being heard by everyone.
The worry would be is the government controlling the media, who's controlling this, and then that's where people talk about. A lot of people will say like, it's a private company, they're allowed to do that. But if it's even though it's a private company, if it's like influenced by the government, is the government then taking away their freedom of speech?
Yeah.
So I think we see how not just government, but also people in society, socially, how it relates to Fahrenheit 451, how it could happen, when it could happen, and that's a wrap on episode 2.
Discuss government censorship in Fahrenheit 451, and if we believe something like this could happen in the modern society that we live in. In Fahrenheit 451, government censorship is taken to the extreme. They have banned books so that their citizens cannot gain knowledge from the past. They also are very against differing opinions. There's a quote in the book that I would like to paraphrase to show this. Why would we allow our citizens to have 2 different opinions when we could limit it to 1 or 0? This shows that the government wants full control over their society and to influence the way everyone thinks so they can act to their own accord. The government is trying to turn Fahrenheit 451 society into human robots, and it basically works on everyone besides Montauk and a couple of other outcasts. Now, do we believe this could happen to the society we live in today? Well, in the United States, we did not believe this, because in the United States, we have freedom of speech and we have laws and amendments that cause this to never happen. Technology is so advanced here that if we want to, we could get information from other places and form our own opinions just by the click of a button. Though, in countries like China or North Korea, this could be a very big possibility in the future. We've already seen them go to lengths of limiting their citizens' knowledge and capability to create their own opinions. The government can blacklist sites or delete stuff straight off the face of the internet for their citizens to see. This is so they can have control over them. If citizens go against this, there is very severe punishments, such as killing or jail time. Just like in Fahrenheit 451, if you read books or have differing opinions, they will send a mechanical hound to come after you or put you in the jail. Both societies are very alike in some ways and very not alike in some ways. Bradbury, when he wrote this, actually predicted our society to change into something like this. Not as brutal as banning books entirely, but limiting knowledge from the government. Again, in some ways he was right, in some ways he was wrong. There's a movement going along in our society about banning books that should not be in school systems. This is to disclude the ideas that are in some of these books. Will this ever happen? I don't think so on a broad scale, but it definitely can happen in some schools that are smaller, and it won't be gaining the attention of the broad public. So in some ways, Bradbury was right, and this could happen in our society. But do we see it happening in the future?